Hey everyone, welcome back to Fast English. I'm your host, Charlotte, and with me today is, as always, Liam. Hi Liam. How are you doing today?
Hey, Charlotte. I'm doing great and very excited for today's episode. We've got an amazing topic to dive into. But before we get started, I'd like to ask, how was your weekend?
Oh, it was filled with books, yoga, and a family gathering. How about you? Any adventures worth sharing?
The usual. Took a hike, had dinner with a friend, no adventure at all. But enough about us, let's talk about what we have for our listeners today. I've been looking forward to this episode. Last time, we had such a great conversation about entrepreneurship versus traditional employment.
Absolutely. If you missed that one, no worries, just check the link to the last episode at the top. And today we're diving into a topic that's probably on a lot of our minds, finding balance between work and personal life.
I'm excited to talk about this. We've all been experiencing the highs and lows of work-life balance to some extent, therefore have a lot to talk about, though I should warn you, I'm not sure I've found the perfect balance yet.
Well, I think none of us have completely figured this out, but definitely it'll be clear by the end of this episode. So dear listeners, grab your headphones and listen carefully. This podcast is designed for you to enhance your listening and speaking capabilities, as well as your vocabulary and sentence structure. Let's start by this question: what does balance mean to you?
That's a good question. For me, balance is less about perfectly dividing time between work and personal life, and more about feeling fulfilled in both areas. I found that, if I'm doing well at work but my family feels neglected, or vice versa, there's a sense of imbalance. It's about making sure both areas get the attention they need.
I like that you said, it's about fulfillment, not just time. I think a lot of us get stuck thinking balance means an exact 50-50 split between work and home, but that's not really realistic, is it?
Exactly. There are going to be weeks when work demands more of my attention, like when I have a big project or a deadline. And then there are other times, like during my kids' birthdays or family vacations, when I focus more on personal life. It's about adjusting based on priorities, at that moment.
That flexibility makes sense. But I bet that requires a lot of self-awareness. How do you know when something is out of balance?
Sometimes, I'm putting too much into work, and I need to set better boundaries, like turning off emails after a certain hour. Other times, it's the reverse, where I'm spending a lot of energy on personal commitments, and I need to refocus on work to meet my professional goals. It's about being honest with myself, and not being afraid to make adjustments.
Boundaries, yes. I think a lot of people struggle with that, especially with remote work becoming more common. There's no clear separation between work and home anymore. How do you manage that?
You're absolutely right. Working from home makes it hard to draw a line. What works for me is having a dedicated workspace that I treat like an office. Once I'm in that space, I'm in work mode, and when I leave it, I try to mentally check out from work.
That's such a great tip, having that physical separation. Do you ever find it hard to stick to those boundaries?
Oh, absolutely. There are days when I'm tempted to check emails, or finish up a project after hours, especially if something urgent comes up. But, I try to remind myself that work will always be there, and that missing a few hours of work isn't going to make or break my career. On the other hand, missing time with my family or personal downtime could really affect my well-being.
That's a healthy mindset. But I imagine it takes time to develop that kind of discipline. Did you always have this perspective, or was there a turning point for you?
It definitely took time, and honestly, I learned the hard way. The first thing I did was communicate with my employer about adjusting my work hours. I was fortunate that they were supportive, so I started working more efficiently during the day, to leave my evenings free. Also, I set some personal goals outside of work, like getting back into running, and learning to cook. Those activities helped me reconnect with my own interests.
That's such a valuable lesson, working smarter, not harder. I think many of us fall into the trap of equating hours worked with success. But as you've shown, that's not always the case.
Yeah, it's a common misconception. I think we're conditioned to believe that working 24/7 is the only path to success. But real success, at least in my experience, comes from being intentional with your time and energy.
That's such a great point. What advice would you give to someone who feels like they're constantly struggling to balance everything?
First, I'd say treat yourself with kindness. None of us are going to get it right 100% of the time. It's okay to have off days, or even off weeks. The key is to reflect on what's working, and what's not. And then make adjustments, without beating yourself up. Also, don't be afraid to ask for help, whether that's from a partner, a coworker, or even a professional coach. Sometimes, an outside perspective can help you see things more clearly.
That's really great advice. I think people often feel like they need to handle everything on their own. But as you said, it's okay to lean on others. So, as we wrap up, what's one thing you want listeners to take away from our conversation about work-life balance?
I'd say that balance isn't a destination, it's a practice. You have to continuously check in with yourself, your family, and your work, and adjust as needed. Some days will feel more balanced than others, and that's okay. The important thing is to stay intentional and flexible.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Liam. And to our listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a comment, and let us know your experiences. We'll see you next time, on Fast English, where we will talk about career growth and skill development.
That'll be a very exciting topic, Charlotte. Looking forward to it. Until then, take care everyone.